And what is the Risale-i Nur? Bediuzzaman said Nursi was born in eastern Turkey in 1877 and died in 1960 at the age of 83 after a life of exemplary struggle and self-sacrifice in the cause of Islam. He was a scholar of the highest standing, having studied not only all the traditional religious sciences but also modern science, and had earned the name Bediuzzaman, wonder of the age, in his youth as a result of his outstanding ability and learning. Bediuzzaman's lifetime spanned the final decades of the Caliphate and Ottoman Empire, its collapse and dismemberment after the First World War, and, after its formation in 1923, the first 37 years of the Republic, of which the years up to 1950 are famous for the government's repressive anti-Islamic and anti-religious policies. Until the years following the First World War, Bediuzzaman's struggles in the cause of Islam had been active and in the public domain. He had not only taught many students and had engaged in debate and discussion with leading scholars from all over the Islamic world, but he had also commanded and led in person a volunteer regiment against the invading Russians in eastern Turkey in 1914 for nearly 2 years until taken prisoner. Furthermore, up to that time he had sought to further the interests of Islam by actively engaging in public life. However, the years that saw the transition from empire to republic also saw the transition from the old Said to the new Said. The new Said was characterized by his withdrawal from public life and concentration on study, prayer and thought, for what was required now was a struggle of a different sort. Although he had paid no part in it, and in fact had strongly advised its leaders to abandon their uprising against the government, during the events in eastern Turkey of 1925, Bediuzzaman was sent into exile in western Anatolia. Following this, for the next 25 years, and to a lesser extent for the last 10 years of his life, he suffered nothing but exile, imprisonment, harassment and persecution by the authorities. But these years of exile and isolation saw the writing of the Risale-i Nur, the treatise of light, and its dissemination throughout Turkey. To quote Bediuzzaman himself, "Now I see clearly that most of my life has been directed in such a way outside my own free will, ability, comprehension and foresight, that it might produce these treatises to serve the cause of the Quran. It is as if all my life as a scholar has been spent in preliminaries to these writings, which demonstrate the miraculousness of the Quran." Bediuzzaman understood an essential cause of the decline of the Islamic world to be the weakening of its very foundations, that is, a weakening of belief in the basic tenets of the Islamic faith. This, together with the unprecedented attacks on those foundations in the 19th and 20th centuries carried out by materialists, atheists and others in the name of science and progress, led him to realize that the urgent and overriding need was to strengthen, and even to save, belief. What was needed was to expend all efforts to reconstruct the edifice of Islam from its foundations, belief, and to answer at that level those attacks with a non-physical jihadu for the word. Thus, in his exile, Bediuzzaman wrote a body of work, the Risale-i Nur, that would explain and expound the basic tenets of belief, the truths of the Quran, to modern man. His method was to analyze both belief and unbelief and to demonstrate through clearly reasoned arguments that not only is it possible, by following the method of the Quran, to prove rationally all the truths of belief, such as God's existence and unity, prophethood, and bodily resurrection, but also that these truths are the only rational explanation of existence, man and the universe. Bediuzzaman thus demonstrated in the form of easily understood stories, comparisons, explanations, and reasoned proofs that, rather than the truths of religion being incompatible with the findings of modern science, the materialist interpretation of those findings is irrational and absurd. Indeed, Bediuzzaman proved in the Risale-i Nur that science's breathtaking discoveries of the universe's functioning corroborate and reinforce the truths of religion. The importance of the Risale-i Nur cannot be overestimated, for through it Bediuzzaman said Nursi played a major role in preserving and revitalizing the Islamic faith in Turkey in the very darkest days of her history. And indeed its role has continued to increase in importance to the present day. But further to this, the Risale-i Nur is uniquely fitted to address not only all Muslims but indeed all mankind for several reasons. Firstly, it is written in accordance with modern man's mentality, a mentality that, whether Muslim or not, has been deeply imbued by materialist philosophy. It specifically answers all the questions, doubts and confusions that this causes. It answers to all the whys that mark the questioning mind of modern man. Also, it explains the most profound matters of belief, which formerly only advanced scholars studied in detail, in such a way that everyone, even those to whom the subject is new, may understand and gain something without it causing any difficulties or harm. A further reason is that in explaining the true nature and purpose of man and the universe, the Risale-i Nur shows that true happiness is only to be found in belief and knowledge of God, both in this world and the hereafter. And it also points out the grievous pain and unhappiness that unbelief causes man's spirit and conscience, which generally the misguided attempt to block out through heedlessness and escapism, so that anyone with any sense may take refuge in belief. To conclude, the Holy Quran addresses the intellect as well as man's other inner faculties. It directs man to consider the universe and its functioning in order to learn its true nature and purposes as the creation, and thus to learn the attributes of its single creator and his own duties as a creature. This, then, is the method that Bediuzzaman employed in the Risale-i Nur. He explained the true nature of the universe as signs of its creator and demonstrated through clear arguments that when it is read as such all the fundamentals of belief may be proved rationally. When this method is followed, a person attains a true belief that will be sound and firm enough to withstand any doubts that may arise in the face of the subtle attacks of materialism, naturalism and atheism, or the materialist approach to scientific advances. For all scientific and technological advances are merely the uncovering of the workings of the cosmos. When the cosmos is seen to be a vast and infinitely complex and meaningful unified book describing its single author, rather than causing doubt and bewilderment, all these discoveries and advances reinforce belief, they deepen and expand it. Man's most fundamental need is the need for religion, the need to recognize and worship Almighty God with all his most beautiful names and attributes, and to obey his laws, those manifest in the universe and those revealed through his prophets. In explaining the message of the Quran, Almighty God's final revealed book, brought and perfectly expounded by his final prophet, Muhammad, upon whom be blessings and peace, and Islam, the complete and perfected religion for mankind, Bediuzzaman said Nursi demonstrated in the Risale-i Nur that there is no contradiction or dichotomy between science and religion, rather, true progress and happiness for mankind can, and will only be achieved in this way, the way of the Quran. Sosla Publications. Publisher's preface to the Damascus Sermon. While visiting Damascus in early 1911, Bediuzzaman said Nursi was invited by the religious authorities there to give a sermon in the historic Umayyad Mosque. On their insistence he agreed, and delivered a sermon to a gathering of close on 10,000, including 100 scholars. It met with such a response that the text was afterwards printed twice in 1 week. In this sermon, Bediuzzaman gave certain news that in the future Islam and the truths of the Quran would prevail, and he provided clear proofs that this would occur. Not only did he demonstrate how the Islamic world could heal itself through taking the medicines of the Quran, but he also pointed out a number of developments in the West, among them the stirrings of a genuine search for the truth, that indicated to a forthcoming acceptance of Islam. With extraordinary foresight, Bediuzzaman predicted that, as all the evidence suggested, Islam would in the near future gain ascendancy. However, the 2 world wars and a period of despotism both in Turkey and elsewhere in the Islamic world, which he had not foreseen, delayed matters. That is to say, as the developments of which he gave news in 1911 slowly unfold, this sermon, together with its diagnosis of some of the fundamental ills afflicting the Islamic world and the remedies from the Holy Quran that it points out, continues to be of the greatest relevance for Muslims of the present day. As Bediuzzaman said, Nursi demonstrates, since Islam relies on reason and reasoned proof, it is the religion of the present and the future, for this is the age of science, technology and reason. This fact is being understood now by many who realize that they cannot live without a true and complete religion. The causes for the decline of the Islamic world and its material backwardness in comparison to the West should be sought in the failure of Muslims to adhere to the teachings and truths of the Holy Quran and Islam. Just as Islam provides for the material progress of man, and indeed urges him towards it, so does it provide for man's true progress and development in moral and spiritual matters. This combination forms the basis of true civilization. Since Western civilization is not based on truth and justice, but on the principles of force, conflict, and aggression, the evils of civilization predominate over its virtues. If man is to survive, he will embrace Islam, for he understands now his need for true civilization, founded on the positive truths of revelation, the Holy Quran and the Sharia of the Prophet Muhammad PBUH, in which the virtues of progress predominate, and the benefits of civilization may be profited from. In the form of 6 words, Bediuzzaman describes a number of those positive truths of Islam, which form the cure for the grievous sicknesses besetting the Muslim community. Hope, courage, honesty, love and brotherhood, self-sacrifice, awareness of the luminous bonds uniting the believers, mutual consultation. These are not qualities that are unimportant or may be dispensed with in the face of the difficulties or threats. On the contrary, they form the very foundation of Muslim society. As the truths of the Quran and Islam become increasingly apparent in this age of scientific discovery and technological advance, the lessons of Bediuzzaman said Nursi's prophetic sermon of 1911 increase in significance. The civilization of the future is true civilization, the civilization of Islam. It will be achieved through Muslims heeding these lessons, and rebuilding their society on the foundations of belief, and on the morality of Islam. Besides the 2 original printings of the sermon, a further edition of the Arabic text was published in Istanbul in 1922. In the 1950s it was translated into Turkish by the author, and then published as part of the Risale-i Nur Collection. Bediuzzaman expanded to some degree this Turkish edition, which is the source of the present translation, in order to address directly contemporary Muslims also. For this reason there are references to dates subsequent to 1911, and to other parts of the Risale-i Nur. Bediuzzaman added other pieces to the Turkish edition, taken from various of his works, which all illustrate aspects of the main theme of his sermon, that not only Muslims, but all mankind, will find happiness and salvation only through applying the principles of the Quran in their social and political lives. It will also be useful for readers to bear in mind that Bediuzzaman saw the achievement of this through the spread of the healing light of the Quranic teachings on the truths of belief exemplified in the Risale-i Nur and their acceptance, rather than as a result of political activity. Introduction to the Turkish translation of the original Arabic Damascus sermon.